Welcome to Things to Watch Out For When Writing Essays. So as we progress through the year, we are going to continue to practice writing essays, and some of the things that I have noticed from you guys is that you've developed a few bad habits, and it's really important that you're able to not only recognize what it is that you're doing, but also understand why it's a bad habit and how you can fix it. So the first thing I want to address is no thesis or an unclear thesis. I can't say it enough. Read the prompt, read the prompt, read the prompt. Make sure that when you are writing your topic sentence, that it is directly addressing what the prompt is asking. If the prompt says, write an informative essay that explains the similarities between dogs and humans, then your topic sentence needs to say, the articles by so-and-so and so-and-so explain the similarities between dogs and humans. It's really that simple. As long as your topic sentence directly addresses that prompt, then you're good. You can even just write your topic sentence, your thesis, without an introduction and still get a really good score on your essay. The introduction is not as important as that topic sentence. If the only thing in your introduction is that topic sentence, you're going to be okay. The rest of the introduction is important, and you should definitely try to do something with that and give background information and be creative, but don't leave out your thesis, and make sure that it is very clear and clearly represents that writing prompt. Being off topic is another thing that I notice that some students have a tendency to do. And the way you can prevent that is read the prompt, read the prompt, read the prompt. If what you are elaborating on does not at some point connect back to the topic of your essay, then you are off topic. If you are telling an anecdote to explain your evidence, then it's important that you don't just assume that your reader is making the connection that you're making. You have to spell it out for them. So, especially if it seems like it might be off topic. So go back and read it, make sure that it connects, and if it doesn't connect, then you need to make sure that you connect it or take that out and start over. But always make sure that whatever points you're trying to make, that it clearly states it in your essay. You cannot just assume that people understand everything the way that you do. And then another thing is too much evidence. Yes, there is a such thing. Too much evidence is when you have given me a quote and then you want to elaborate on that quote with another quote. And then you elaborate on that with another quote. And then before you know it, you don't have hardly any words that are your own, and most of your essay is just quotes from the text set. So avoid doing that. Make sure that you always have, for every line of evidence that you have on your paper, then you should have 4 lines of your own thoughts in your own words. And that is not just restating the evidence in different words, which we're going to go into in just a second. So, yes, too much evidence is really bad. All right, so a little fun fact, there is a cartoon called Word Girl on PBS. I don't know if they still show it, but they showed it a long time ago, and this is the evil Lady Redundant. It's a very cute cartoon if you ever have a chance to check it out. But repeating your evidence instead of elaborating is something that I'm finding a lot of you guys are doing. So saying something, giving a quote and then just saying that quote again in different words, in your own words, is not elaborating. That is just repeating, and it is not good, and it will result in losing points on your evidence and elaboration part of your score. So make sure that you are not just rephrasing the quote when you elaborate. That's a huge, huge no-no. So that brings me to my next point, which is not enough elaboration. If that's all you're doing is restating the quote in your own words, then it's definitely not enough. You have to provide more details. And here are some of the ways that you can do that. You can define an important word. Maybe there's a big word in there that needs to be defined, and that will help the reader understand the point you're trying to make. Or you can express the effects of what's happening in the quote. Maybe your article or your essay is about, climate change, and your quote has something to do with, straws, using straws and how it can hurt sea turtles. Then you can express how that is going to affect climate change in your elaboration. Or you can provide an example or a related anecdote, which is an example story. You can explain its importance to society, but you cannot just reword the quote. That is not enough elaboration. You have to give more details. And this, again, is something that a lot of you are not doing in your essays. Okay, so use appropriate style. This isn't something I have a huge concern about right now, but as we start to dive into argumentative essay writing, which is very similar to persuasive writing, I do want you all to pay attention to the types of words that you're using in your essay that changes the tone. The tone of your paper should reflect the style of essay that you should be writing. An informative essay is definitely not going to be using any personal pronouns unless it's a quote. And an argumentative essay should use more words that are contrasting. So let's take a look at some of those examples. Now you can use these words in either or, but you're going to find that you're going to use should and should not, and in contrast, and another reason, or on the other hand. All of these types of words are going to be more common in an argumentative or persuasive essay, and you're going to use them more often. And in an informative essay, you're very rarely going to use these kinds of words, for the ones that you would use in argumentative or persuasive. And you're going to be using some of these words more often, like analyze and an example and to define or to explain. These are words that you're going to be more focused on in an informative essay. So make sure you're being careful as to the tone of your paper. Does it reflect argumentative? Does it reflect informative? Does it feel like, when you read it back to yourself, does it feel like you're trying to convince your reader, or does it feel like you're trying to inform them? And make that decision, and if you feel like it doesn't match the type of essay you're supposed to write, then you should be making some changes on some of the words that you've chosen. So that brings me to another thing. Having an objective tone is something you should do in any kind of essay. At this point, elementary school, it was encouraged for you to say things like I feel and I think, and that was to help you really be able to just kind of process your paper in a way that makes more sense to you. But now you need to take a step out of yourself and start expressing your opinions without saying I feel and I believe. I think that purple is the best color ever. Or I could say purple is the best color ever. One of them sounds like an opinion and the other one sounds like a fact. So you want even in an argumentative, you want your opinions to be expressed as facts. You want to sound credible and you want to sound like you know what you're talking about. So regardless of what kind of essay you're writing, try to keep that objective tone. Okay, and then spelling errors and typos. I understand that there's no spell checker when you're writing your FSA. And even if there is, there's still going to be spelling errors that spell checker isn't going to find for you. But what you do have is the text set. And if there's a word like cinnamon, which is often misspelled, or spaghetti, if you're using those words in your essay, chances are it's probably something that was in the article too. And you can go back to the article and compare the spelling of your word with the spelling of the word in the article, and then know whether or not you spelled it correctly. So double check those words, make sure you're spelling them right, and fix them before you submit your essay. It's a very easy thing to do, especially if you have an extra 10 to 20 minutes at the end of your essay and you're like, oh, I'm done. Read your essay. Read it over when you're finished. You're not going to catch all of your mistakes if you just write the essay and turn it in. You have to reread it, and you have to change things that you find that are mistakes. It's very important to do that because you could very easily lose points on something that you would have caught had you just proofread afterwards. Lack of transitional phrases, that's another thing. Those of you who are not even using words like first and second and third, it shows in your paper, and it doesn't make the reading very smooth. It's really important to, at the very least, use those. But those of you who have been using those, I'd like you to step outside of the box a little bit, start using some more advanced transitional techniques, especially this first one. This one's my favorite. Not only this, but also that. That's a beautiful transition at the beginning of a paragraph because it is connecting the previous point that you made with the next point that you made, and it's just so smooth the way it goes from one idea to the other. This is one of my favorites, but these, all four of these are really good. And there's plenty more really good advanced transitional techniques. And we can review some of those if you'd like, but just please make sure that you are using transitions in your essays. And so that ends this Nearpod. If you would like to look at the Nearpod without going through this video again, then you can do that by entering this Nearpod code, KOHEN. Make sure that you put your first and last name when you enter your name into it so that I can see who has been reviewing it and who has not. There might be a little extra credit for doing a little studying. And that is all.